Well, hello once again. Always excited to share with you some scripture and to encourage you to put some comments or some thoughts at the bottom of this along those lines where it says comments, and hopefully we can get some conversation started around this week's lectionary text. This Sunday is Christ the King Sunday. It's a time of celebration. It's a time to look at Jesus and kind of reflect on not only on his life, but what the implications are for our own lives. So I want to start off by reading the lectionary text. It's John 18, verse 33 through 37. It says, "So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' Jesus answered, 'Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?' Pilate answered, 'Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done?' Jesus answered, 'My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not from this world.' Then Pilate said to him, 'So you are a king?' And Jesus answered, 'You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice.'" What an interesting text this week, and certainly an interesting interaction. Here's the irony of it. Jesus, the Son of God, King of Kings, being asked if he is King of the Jews. Now, thanks be to God, I'm not Jesus. For if I were, I think I'd probably give some snooty answer, such as, "Not only the Jews." But you see, Jesus has a way of directing things right to the heart of our questions. And to this degree, we see that he's now questioning Pilate. Pilate seems to want to know if he's the king of the Jews for a couple of reasons. But again, we're not quite sure what's happening with Pilate. So we look to this text, and the very thing that Pilate is asking of Jesus, we have a tendency of asking of Jesus still today. Is he really the king? What point does that then have for our own lives? It kind of sounds like the questioning that Adam and Eve did back in the garden. They said, can we be like God? Can we be in control? Can we know good versus evil? Is Jesus really the king? Or rather, can I be king of my own life? And that's typically where we run into issues when we try to run things. This, of course, has some political baggage for Pilate. When he's asking if Jesus is king of the Jews, whether he answers yes or no is going to leave Pilate with some decisions to make. So Pilate is this Roman procurator, or rather the governor, and he doesn't like the Jewish people. We see this for a couple examples. The zealots, these political radicals that try to kill off the Roman officials. Pilate doesn't want to have to deal with that. Now, he'd rather stay back in Rome, where there's these wonderful baths, there's running water, there's theaters, all these various things to occupy his time. He doesn't want to be in this land full of Jews who live a certain way, that say even on the Sabbath, on Friday night until Saturday night, you can't do work. There's too many rules. He'd rather live a fun life. Yet he's stuck as the governor of this area of Jerusalem. So he comes down as little as possible. Here he's coming down because it's the Passover. Interesting thing here is he's doing so to keep the peace. And when we look at the parallel text of what Jesus is being accused of, Luke 23 Verse 2, it says, "And they began to accuse him, saying, 'We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ, is a king.'" And to this, the Jewish people bring him to Pilate and say he needs to be dealt with. The Jews at the time weren't able to deal with it. They could not issue corporate punishment because they're not in charge. The Romans are. And so we see Pilate in this real sticky situation. He wants to keep the peace among the Jews so there's no revolt. Far be it for him on his own watch that there's this uprising. Yet we see that he doesn't want to condemn an innocent man. I find this extremely fascinating because historically we see that Pilate had no issues going off and just killing people, killing Jews, for whatever reason or another. And again, there was not peace. The Jews did not like the Romans did not like the Jews. The Romans came in and they took over the Jews. And so here we see that he wants to set Jesus free, but he can't. Why is that? So we look to John 19:12 for that answer. From then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not a friend of Caesar's. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." The Jews didn't care about Caesar. Caesar thought himself to be a god. And the Jews would have called this blasphemy, for God alone is God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. Yet here, they're having Jesus arrested and trying to get him sentenced to death for saying that he is God. So Jesus says he's God. What do? Let's take him to the Romans, where Caesar's in control. Caesar says he's God. It's interesting. So Pilate's really put on the line here. If someone is opposed to Caesar and Pilate lets them go free, well, who do you think the next person is that's going to be crucified? Now, Pilate is stuck. He has to do something here. The interesting thing, though, is what did Pilate see when he looked to Jesus? Jesus tells him that his kingdom is not of this world, and his reason for existence is to show humanity this. This is God reaching down to show us who God is. As Pilate is staring into Jesus' face, he's literally staring into the face of God. What kind of a reaction would you have? What kind of a stirring is going on within Pilate? But of course, he doesn't want this uproar from the Jews. And that's exactly what they're doing, because Jesus is not fitting the mold of who they think Jesus should be. They're looking for their Messiah. They're looking for this conquering king, this king who, just like David, reigns supreme over everything else, who subdued his enemies. And of course, the Romans are the enemies right now. They're occupying Jerusalem. They're saying, "You Jews, you are not free. We are in control of you." And when Jesus doesn't go and conquer the Romans, the Jews look for something. They say, if he's not going to conquer the Romans, we're going to go to the Romans and ask them to conquer him. We see in John chapter 11, verse 49, Caiaphas, who's the high priest, says, "You know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it is better for one man to die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish." He did not say this of his own accord, verse 51 tells us, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. So if Jesus comes and he claims to be king, but he wasn't, for example, then two things take place. If he's claiming that he is the Messiah, the Christ, the King, then we're going to see the tension that comes forth in today's text. If you've got a king living in your kingdom, you better go take care of it. And so that's exactly what the Romans would have come and done. They would have conquered Jesus and Jesus' people, who is the Jews. So that's an issue. Jesus wasn't going to fight the battle for them, so they better take care of it before it got out of hand. Now, the second issue here is Jesus claiming to be from God, which again would have been blasphemy if he actually wasn't from God, would have brought on a completely different story. The Jews were very concerned ever since 586, when they went into exile in Babylon. They were fearful of upsetting God. You see, God said, if you follow my laws, my decrees, my statutes, you will live a happy, long life in the land I'm giving to you. This is right after getting out of Exodus, right in the book of Exodus, right out of Egypt, sorry. But the problem here is they didn't follow God's ways. They went their own ways. Time and time again, they kept messing up and going their own way. They were worshiping Baal. They were worshiping other gods. They were making sacrifices to them, and God gave them warning after warning after warning. And finally they started to say, oh, God won't do anything. He's all talk. All he does is warn us. And then eventually that transformed into, oh, is God even real? We can't even see him acting. Well, at that point, you kind of force God's hand. If you're saying, oh, God's not even real, look, he's not doing anything to us. So God sends them into exile. Now they're so fearful of going back that direction, they're following the law to a T. They're making sure they don't take too many steps on the Sabbath. They're doing whatever they can to follow the law, to the point that they started focusing more on the law than they did on God. But here you've got Jesus coming, and they're saying, oh, is he the king? Is he the Messiah? Is he the chosen one? And as soon as he starts saying that he and the Father are one, they're saying, we've got to put a stop to this before God gets angry and puts us in a worse situation than we already are. So, ironically, or more godly, is that we see Jesus standing right before Pilate, who is now going to be put to death for all the people. Just as the Jews predicted, just as Caiaphas predicted, Jesus needed to die for people. Only here we see Jesus dying for all people. Now, come to class this Sunday for our adult education. I'll talk a little bit more about this. It'll be interesting and fun. Come converse with us. But this is why this text is so interesting for us today. Here's Jesus, who is king. And as king, he rules over our lives. Here in the 21st century America, it doesn't make much sense to us. It sounds not that great. It sounds like our freedom's being taken away from us, which we truly value so highly. But really, Jesus is saying, I've got the best way for you to live. To die to ourselves and pick up our cross, to live for Jesus, to put him as king instead of ourselves, is actually the best thing for us. And even Luther goes to say this is a daily thing of dying to the self, of picking up our crosses and following Jesus, who is the king. Let him reign supreme in our lives. Now we got to think back to these times of castles and kings, and what was the king's job? It was to watch over the people. It was to protect the people. It was to guide the people. When we proclaim Jesus as our king, we are saying that his ways are better than our ways. We're saying that he knows more than what we know. We're saying that his protection is far superior to us even trying to take care of ourselves. To this, Jesus tells us that the best way to live is not necessarily these rules and regulations that we have to follow, but rather these life-giving things. Literally, if we follow Scripture, our life will be better for it. It's kind of like me telling you, don't put your hand on that hot stove, to which case you might say, geez, Devin's so controlling, he never lets us have any fun. Or you can see, wow, Devin actually cares for us. He doesn't want us to be hurt. And we can look at Scripture the same way. All these rules and regulations in our lives, and oh, geez, God doesn't want us to have fun. Or we can say, wait a minute. If I don't tell lies, it'll be a lot easier having these friendships. People can trust me. If I don't go off and cheat on my wife, then I'll have true intimacy with my wife. We'll have a trusting relationship. If I don't put money before God, well, then I can have this relationship with God that isn't competitive with these other things that distract me, but rather I can hear the voice of God in my life. Now I could go through the whole scriptures this way. Literally, what the Bible places before us as our way to live is the best way to live. This is what it means to put Jesus as our King. It's to say that He cares for us. He loves us. This is the reason Jesus was sent to this world, because God so loved the world. And to everyone who is of truth, who is a child of God, they will listen to Jesus' voice. So, how do we live out our relationship to the King? How do we live underneath His lordship? How does this play out in our politics? How does this play out in our work situations, in sports, in any single aspect of life, in our parenting? I would love to see your thoughts and comments on this. So if you don't mind, write up a little something below this in the comments area, and we'll have some conversation back and forth. Thank you so much for your time.